Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I'm Pierre, that's Tim. We talk about horror movies on this show, and we had said last time we were going to do a new Candyman next, but we decided to bump it by a couple of episodes just to, have a bit of variety. And Tim, for some reason, decided to remember that a sequel in a franchise that we had previously done all of the entries of, in fact, we did all the entries of this franchise before the previous entry came out, was released in May of this year. That film, of course, is A Spiral from the Book of Saw.
Oh boy.
AKA Saw 9.
Oh.
If you want to call
Saw 9 just doesn't have that ring to it as Spiral from the Book of Saw does.
It really doesn't, does it? It's this is a weird one. We'll get into it. We'll start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we go into spoilers. But this is the film that came out of a weird place where, for some reason, Chris Rock wanted to produce a Saw movie. Even though the last Saw movie, I mean, Saw 7 felt pretty definitive, and then Saw 8 was kind of, Jigsaw that was kind of like trying to make a comeback, but it didn't do amazingly well, so it just kind of felt like, that kind of ends things again, whatever. And then out of nowhere, Chris Rock's like, I really like Saw. I want to make more Saw. So, at the behest of him, this movie's career, it also stars Samuel L. Jackson. Randomly. So
this is a story about fathers and sons, ultimately.
And police corruption.
Yeah.
That's the other main theme of the movie. Yeah,
well, mostly fathers and sons.
It's just such a weird thing. The only way I can describe like how this felt is that the opening 5 minutes does feel like a Saw movie. Someone's sort of chased and trapped, and they wake up, and then they're inside like one of Jigsaw-esque contraptions where technically you can save yourself, but I mean, even if you do, you're going to be horribly disfigured, and the chances of you actually even succeeding in time are next to impossible. But it's very much a sort of thing. There's a couple of quick cuts, right, and then that classic Saw trap kind of, the camera's kind of cutting around. But then after this scene, it cuts to Chris Rock, and it cuts to the police characters, and all of a sudden we're in like a comedy thriller where
comedy is stretching it.
Well, the reason why I say that is because there's several scenes, especially early on, where it feels like Chris Rock's just doing material from his stand-up.
Yeah, the really weird opening bit where they're talking about like the wokeness of Forrest Gump, like, that just feels like weird, like older stand-up complaining about like political correctness. Yeah,
I mean, there was one line in it that made me chuckle a little bit, so I'll give it that. But is that a cat, Tim? It's the cat's loud.
Yeah. She's trying to get into the bag of food.
But yeah, so the good cat. Cease this noise.
Damien from the Book of Cat.
From the Book of Cats, yes.
Cats.
So yeah,
she is a what do you call it? Methodical, mephistical, angelical cat, whatever.
Oh, Jellicle cat.
Jericho, there you go, Jericho cat.
No, not Jericho, Jellicle. You said Angelical, it's just Jellicle. Don't ask me what Jellicle means because I don't know, but they said it a million times in that stupid movie. So, but yeah, it comes to this weird rant about Forrest Gump. And tries to swerve us that Chris Rock might be with this group of criminals, but he's actually undercover. And of course, he ends up being the lead detective on the case going forward. But there's another bit.
The whole time you're thinking, man, it's good to be back into the Saw universe. Feels like I've never left.
But just likewise, there's another section, like maybe like 5 minutes later, where he's with his new partner. And it's like, it genuinely feels like 3 minutes of stand-up about wives and cheating, like wives cheating on their partners, where he just talks about, Pilates isn't a real thing. Don't worry, that's a dick date. Your wife's on a dick date. And it goes on for like 3 minutes, and I'm like, what is this? It's just Chris Rock doing Chris Rock stand up. It's weird.
It is strange.
I got whiplash almost from the start of this, but somehow this is kind of the least Saw movie, because in the sense that for large stretches it's just kind of this other more generic, still quite bad. I mean, not to spoil my thoughts, but it's a really boring, full of cliche moments, which we'll get to. But for the most part, it's quite dull. So despite the fact that it kind of is the least Saw-like, whenever it does go into Saw mode, which it does every so often, it kind of feels like just the most like phoned in Saw movie, where it just kind of feels half-assed. That's weird.
I mean, the funny thing is neither one of us really have had any love for the franchise. Like,
No.
I'm really not a fan for any of the movies at all, but it is funny watching this and actually like wanting more Saw, even though like I don't like Saw, but man, watching this really made me want Saw.
I wouldn't say it made me want it, but I will say that from an objective standpoint, this movie, and I won't say it's as much of a departure because it's not, but it is a big departure from what Saw normally is because of how much it focuses to just the detectives' lives versus you know, because I said there was some quick cuts during the Jigsaw-esque like traps. But for the rest of the movie, when they're just out like doing stuff and investigating and talking, the camera work is actually pretty normal. It doesn't do a lot of, you know, there's some cheesy like tropey like, oh, he stares through the blinds and the sunlight of the blinds comes through and hits his face kind of thing. But there's no, you know, MTV music video, boom, 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 boom. We're trying to make this dramatic.
And weirdly enough, when they do that kind of stuff, it usually seems like it's on Chris Rock's character. Like there are times when he gets these kind of like, I don't know, like headaches or migraines, and it does do like this weird, like it looks like he's getting like a psychic attack or something, you know, where it's like, ah.
Yeah, it takes a while to get there though. Does it? Yeah. So yeah, what I was going to compare, I was going to compare it to, and again, I don't think this is much of a departure, but it is definitely a departure. And it's funny that it's also number 9, but this is very much Jigsaw Goes to Hell, the final puzzle. I'm comparing it, of course, to Jason Goes to Hell, the Final Friday. And that obviously we don't care about Saw that much. We don't really like the franchise. But watching this as an outsider objectively, I'm like, this is kind of like, this must make Saw fans feel a little bit like what we feel like watching that 9th Friday the 13th, because it's kind of like so far removed from what those movies, you know, for better or worse. Like obviously we're not that fond of them, but it is like a real weird pivot. And okay, sure, maybe I mean, if the movie was good, if we actually thought this was a high quality film, then I'd probably be saying I'm glad it pivoted because finally it's a good movie. But it's not good either. It's just really bad, and also not what the fans of the franchise probably want.
Yeah, and now that you mention it, is a pretty good comparison, especially at the end when you know, Jigsaw dies and then Annabelle's hand comes out of the ground and drags his mask underneath.
Finally, the Lionsgate and the Conjuring verse are going to collide. Yeah, I mean, that was the other thing that got me, was just how cliched a lot of this was. There's scenes of like the police captain yelling and saying, "Give me a break, we've got a heat wave out there," and I'm like, is that something police captains normally complain? Does that really affect the police work that much? It being kind of warm.
Yeah, I mean, it's really really weird. It's hard to describe. Like it does almost kind of feel like a fan film, like in a way.
Yeah,
and like and weirdly enough, I was kind of excited for the movie. Like it wasn't a movie where I was like, oh my god, like, you know, I'm dying to see this. But since I didn't really like the franchise, and I thought it was going to be more of a reboot or departure or go into a different direction, I was kind of like, all right, well, if I don't really like the, you know, previous movies, maybe this will be kind of a new starting point that I'll actually dig. But it's just so much of the like same stuff, while, you know, like it really doesn't feel like that different to me, other than like honestly the traps seeming like there's less of them and that they're less interesting or exciting, and then focusing more on the cops. But I mean, like all the same kind of like stuff is there, like, you know, like all the Saw movies, they all kind of blur together, you know, for me. But it seems like we've had like a lot of like corrupt cop stuff throughout the series. I feel like they've already played with the idea of having like a copycat killer. That's not anything new, like I don't really understand what the point of this is, especially since like I don't know, the last movie doesn't feel like it was so long ago. Like it's not like it's been 20 years and it's like, all right, well, maybe we'll start, fresh. But yeah, I guess spoiling my thoughts on it is I did not enjoy this. I thought it was like super boring. Like you said, it was just super cliche. It was like, just every obvious, cop line you can have.
The dialogue was killing me, Tim. Like there was so many moments because the whole thing with Chris Rock's character is that he turned in a dirty cop like years ago, so they all don't trust him. So the way he just like yells at them or saying he can't watch his back or someone might shoot him in his back, like all of the lines you've heard them in 50, like 100, 200 movies, whatever it may be.
Yeah. And then like don't want to get like too political or anything, but like it seems like you could have said a lot more if you're doing a horror movie like about like dirty cops and stuff with everything we've seen the last couple of years. Like it seems like I don't know, you could make more of a statement or something on it, but there's no like statement here.
there could have been something to actually explore the idea of, and it almost comes close to kind of giving the main character a dilemma in which they have to kind of make a choice, and unfortunately it just kind of doesn't do anything interesting with it. But like you could like if this was like your like a lot of good horror movies that do have some kind of like theme they want to get across or mission statement, like Romero zombie movies or whatever. I mean those are more overt, but most good horror movies have something that you can sort of trace in their DNA to like what the what the world is like at the time when they were made. And this feels like it almost actively, like maybe the like just how corrupt the cops are is taken a little bit from the real world as a plot device, but other than that, it doesn't feel. If anything, it feels like it's actively trying to avoid being anything controversial and being anything that actually does make any statement. It just wants to be a movie, and like okay, whatever. So. Yeah, really. Yeah, baffling.
And the big thing too, I would say, is also like the when you do get like if when you go into a Saw movie, like the one thing you kind of want is like gnarly traps. Like at least give me some gore or have like some interesting kind of what are those called whatever like devices a Ruberg device or whatever those things I'm talking about.
Kinda, yeah. Go on.
Yeah. I forget the exact word, but like one of those like complicated machines that's like, oh, if you do this and this happens, blah blah blah. But like the traps in this are just so boring, and like there really isn't like much to them.
I think the problem with the Saw movie traps is that after the first couple, they kind of they veered over time to just being, and the first movie had a couple of these in it as well in the flashbacks and whatever, but typically there was the main room or the main group of characters or the main trap, which felt like it set up some clues so you could see some where things were coming. It's funny because we just did Escape Room 2 on Sacred Hockey Mask. What is this? Some kind of Tournament of Champions? Someone says that. Yeah, someone says that. And one of the things that was both true about the first one of those, which you did on Screams, and then the second one is that they'd be far more interesting and entertaining if the traps weren't so weird and obtuse that you could actually play along and maybe actually kind of get some of the answers before the characters do. Like if they were actually solvable and not just ridiculous movie levels of like, no one would ever figure this out in this time period. It would take hours of research and thinking about it and like trial and error and blah blah blah. The Saw traps are kind of the same thing in a way, where they did okay at the start. Like in the first movie, it's not a great movie, and there's a lot of reasons why I think we were both a bit lukewarm on it, but they do set up this room where there's various things in the room and they all come into play as the movie goes on, right? But over time, they kind of just turned into, you're in a torture device and you have to either cut open something or rip something out or injure yourself in some horrific way to get out of it, and that's all it is. And all of them in this movie are that. They're all that type. They're all just one scene of a character in a device. You have to do this to yourself to get out, and that's it.
Speaking of which, like this movie has, I guess, like a reference to the first movie, but it's like so like boring and pointless.
It actually made me laugh a little bit because of we'll talk about it when we get to it, but the timing of it really made me laugh. And I don't know, maybe in a way, I don't think it was in a way it was supposed to make me laugh. Even though I do think they want it to be a little bit funny. Which is that's the other thing is that, you know, we mentioned Chris Rock's like almost stand-up comedy like coming into the movie, which didn't fit his character at all. I think Chris Rock is one of those like comedian actors who just is always playing himself more or less.
Sure.
So it's kind of hard to get into his performances all that much. But
And I do like Chris Rock generally, but like it just his wasn't doing a great job with this character.
yeah, no, I don't dislike him blanket. I think he's got charisma, and I think you know, the one line that made me laugh during the Forrest Gump thing is they're debating like everyone being horrible to him, and particularly the love interest Jenny, and someone says, yeah, but she got with him at the end, and he goes, after she got AIDS, and that did make me chuckle a little bit. His delivery of that was kind of funny, and but it was like, wait, what? This conversation feels like it's out of a different movie. Why is this in a Saw movie?
Yeah, it's so weird.
The fact that it lets characters have time to have conversations like this is so unlike Saw in general. You know, the fact that we get entire debates in the police station over and over again with the same characters is what makes this different. And it's not a good different, but it is different. So plus, you know, we get the new young partner who he has to work with, so that's, you know, a lot of tropes that we have to play with, and the whoever the killer is in this case, because I mean, it's not a spoiler to say it's not Jigsaw. I mean, the original 7 movies definitively killed him. The 8th one teased that he was back and then confirmed, no, he is definitely 100% absolutely dead. So to say that it's not Jigsaw himself in this is not a spoiler. You know, that's part of the movie. And this is set in the world after he existed. They mentioned that this is someone inspired by Jigsaw, and you see a photo of Tobin Bell at one point on a board, and that's about it. That's your connections to the rest of the films.
And I guess like were the spirals ever really a thing in the other Saw movies? I don't really remember. I'm like, maybe they were on some walls or on the puppet or whatever, but
I feel like they were on some of the posters or something. Like I do vaguely remember them being part of the art style or something like that.
It's just funny to me because it reminded me more of I know like you're not like a big Marvel guy, but like on the like last Venom run, there's this whole big new like symbiote god character named Null, who kind of had like basically that same symbol on him. And so it just like reminded me of that.
Yeah, I will say as well, because obviously Saw loves to have the twist, it loves to have, and it does do the thing where it brings back that main theme that plays while all the endings playing out, because they all end with the same music track, kind of dan 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 dan. Right, that does come back. I will say though that the reveal of who the Jigsaw is in this is so blatantly obvious that it's impossible to be even remotely surprised or interested or excited by it.
You know what was like hilarious too is once they reveal who it is, then they do the typical thing where you get all the flashbacks of hearing stuff that said that now like has like another meaning, and you're like oh, and then like at one point they flash back to something that was said like had to have been like 3 minutes ago. It's like they just said it, but like they're treating it like a flashback, like, oh, remember?
Oh yeah. Oh man. So needless to say, we do not recommend Spiral from the Book of Saw, or Saw 9, or whatever you want to call this thing.
Yeah. I'm not even sure what a Book of Saw is. I don't. Maybe I missed it, but did at any point in the movie was it like a Saw book or something that they were like quoting or reading from?
No, I think it's just meant to be someone's inspired by him, so it's from the Bible of Jigsaw. It's like someone took from his learnings, so from the Book of Saw. It is a weird title. It's almost like it's trying to like pretend that it's a more highbrow movie, but it's really not. It's really bottom tier, cheesy, cliched, full of tropes. that just happens to have some Saw stuff and be connected to the Saw franchise.
I thought it also looked really bad. I was like, I mean, I forget what happened with the pandemic and everything. I think this got a theater run, but I mean, looking at it, I was like, this doesn't look like it should be in a theater.
It did get a theater run, and I think it was in May this year. It got a theater run.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look great. I mean, the thing is, though, is that all the Saw movies look kind of shit. If anything, this might look a little bit better than them, but I mean, that's not saying much. The bar is...
I would say at least, like, most of the other Saw movies, I think have a little bit more style, at least, which it's not a style that I enjoy, but
oh, sure.
At least feels like it is more stylistic. But the guy that directed this, didn't he do some of the other Saw movies anyway, though?
He did. He's directed Saw 2, 3, and 4. So this is actually someone who did 3 previous Saw movies coming back to do the weird offshoot kind of one.
That's like another weird thing where it's like, all right, if this is supposed to be, it's not like a reboot, but it is kind of a, I don't know, whatever you want to say, like rebranding or something. Like, it feels like it's a bit of a departure. Like, it feels like you should be getting new blood in there. Like, you shouldn't just be rolling out, the same guy.
I mean, I feel like this was only made because Chris wanted it to. I have to imagine it was more expensive just because of him and Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah. Who honestly is like barely in the movie. Like, I thought he was a co-star.
Well, he's second,
more like special guest.
Yeah, he's second billed, but he has like, including flashback, he has like 4 scenes, and you get the first scene and two flashbacks quite early on, so you go a long time before you see him again. I'm like, is he in that? Is he still in this movie? Like, where did Samuel L. Jackson go? They can only afford him for like 2 days, so he's but like just his inclusion, I assume, means that this was probably more expensive than like the last few Saw movies, if not all of them, because the first one was famously really low budget. So so maybe that's how we'll end up with more Saw movies, just because they're so dirt cheap to make. But I feel like this one only got made because Chris Rock, it was kind of like a weird, like, I don't know if I would say passion project per se, but he clearly he was the driving force behind it. So I wonder if Lionsgate even want to make another Saw movie, or does it linger until someone with some pull says, I want to do one. And it's just so funny to me that we had that happen with this one. Like, someone said, I want to do this, and they had enough, like, name value and power in Hollywood to say, hey, I want to do this. That happened less than like 2 years after the previous film. It's not like the franchise was, like you said earlier, it's not like it's been 15, 20 years. The franchise wasn't lying dormant. This isn't someone who grew up with Saw, then started a movie career, became a big success, and said, you know what, I've got clout now, I want to bring Saw back because I really like Saw. This was someone who's already in Hollywood, who's already been a star for the last 20, 25 years, and said, I want to produce a Saw movie, and I'm going to star in it.
Imagine having like that kind of power. Like, you could just pick up the phone and be like, hey, how comes no one's making any of those boy movies anymore? Like, let's get someone in here. Like,
keep dreaming. Keep dreaming, Tim.
What if this had like set off a trend, and then we just got like a slew of like, oh, Larry the Cable Guy is making the next Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something.
Well, you say that, but wasn't LeBron James like meant to be producing a Friday the 13th at one point? Like,
yeah, it's weird. Which, by the way, tangent or whatever, but we don't really do like the news show anymore. But big news on that front with Victor Miller getting the rights back.
That is true. Victor Miller got the domestic rights back. He's won at least part of the suit, if not, or at least he's won a chunk of it. And now it's interesting. We're still quite a bit away, probably, from it being completely untangled, especially since he doesn't necessarily own the rights to hockey mask wearing Jason, because that wasn't in the first movie and stuff like that. So there's a bit of a weird thing. They're going to have to work out stuff before they can make anything. But
yeah, I mean, that's the thing that like it seems really odd to me that, like, okay, even if you did have the rights to the first movie, it feels like the franchise is so far away from that first movie that, like, other than the name, like,
yeah,
really,
you can't call him Jason Voorhees. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You can't call it Friday the 13th, but it isn't a big deal because a lot of them are just called Jason something now. But by the time you get to the end, but you can't call him Jason. You can have a killer wearing a hockey mask. You can have that. You can't have Camp Crystal Lake though. That's probably a no. Like so, I assume there's going to be a deal at some point worked out for them to, make something. If anyone wants to make a movie, which I'm sure some do, but. We'll see. It's so weird. Like I've pointed this out before, but the gap from the remake till now is longer than any previous gap ever in the franchise. So it'll be a long time coming. When that 13th Jason movie finally comes out, it'll be a long time coming. So let's do spoilers, shall we, Timmy? Let's get spoilers.
Let's do it.
Spiral Book of Saw. So cop gets trapped. Yeah.
I was like wishing that I could do the Saw voice, and I could be like, for years you've enjoyed spoiling movies for others, but now what happens when you get spoiled?
Well, it's funny because if you're going to punish someone who told spoilers, you might do a trap involving their tongue, which is exactly what the first trap is. It's a cop who always lied under oath at court, so they have him. He's got in the subway. He's tied up in front of the train that's oncoming, and he has to pull out his tongue to get away. And he actually does it at the last second, but it's too late, and he gets splatted by the train anyway.
It's kind of funny.
It's a little funny. I mean, I'll give it that. But from there, we have an introduction with Chris Rock, which I'll be honest, I don't really having seen the whole movie now. I don't really know what purpose the opening of his so he's with a team of thieves, and he helps them break in and rob a drug dealer's house or something, and they escape, and then the police show up, and not only is he undercover, he's undercover without telling anyone on the police force. At what point is it not undercover and you're just engaging in illegal activity? If your captain doesn't know about it, and you're just doing it, at your own whim. At what point can you actually? Even if I believe he's telling the truth, but even if he's telling the truth, at what point do you get to argue that when you're you were with a group of thugs and you stole a bunch of money from sure, it wasn't a bank, it was other criminals, so I guess no innocent people are in the crossfire per se, but still
very poor planning.
What I guess the point of this is to show that he's more comfortable working with criminals than he is with other cops because of how they all feel about him, but I don't think they get that across that well. They don't really talk about how he feels better with working with these other people than he does the cops.
And still, I feel like they're making it seem like it was a really big, important operation stuff too, which I don't know. I feel like if there was that much riding on it, I feel like you still would have told someone, even if you are worried what they might do or whatever. But it seems a little far fetched.
You would think. I was expecting it to somehow be relevant later. Either we'd have to go undercover again, so the point would be to show that he's good at going undercover, or maybe the characters involved he would go to for some sort of weird help or something because they know someone, or there'd be a reason for it. But as the movie goes on, I really struggle to actually figure out what the point of that opening was, other than to just give him a cool introduction, he's undercover and he's telling jokes, and then lol, the other cops didn't know he was undercover, and they almost shot him, and then he has to. Then we get the chewed out by the captain scene, the cliche, which is the actress from Riverdale, Veronica's mum, is the chiseled police captain in this, yelling at him. He's then introduced to Max Minghell's character,
head of the department.
Yes, the head of the department, which is relevant for later because of head. Keep that in mind. So we're introduced to Detective Shank, who's the rookie cop who's going to be his partner, and he's like, I worshipped your dad. I actually genuinely thought Samuel L. Jackson's character was dead because of the way they spoke about him and the way they looked at his photo on the wall. I was shocked when Chris Rock goes home later that night and Samuel L. Jackson's sitting in his house waiting for him. I was like, I thought you were dead. I thought we were just going to get him in flashbacks because the way they spoke about him, it sounded like he was already dead, but fair enough. He's alive. Do you know what I'll say? Samuel L. Jackson's a man that's in his 70s, like well into his 70s now. And not only does he not look like a man in his 70s, he also doesn't move like a man in his 70s. He you know, I'm not saying he looks like a 20-year-old like running around or anything, but he is, you know, he looks like a man who walks around at a normal pace in like his 50s, right? He doesn't look like he's struggling to walk or anything like that.
Yeah, it's really weird seeing him and like Chris Rock together, knowing they're supposed to be father and son. Because yeah, like you said, I know that in real life Samuel L. Jackson is, you know, much older than he looks, but just looking at them on screen, it doesn't really look like that there's that much of a huge age gap between them.
I mean, yeah, because Chris Rock must be like pushing 50 by now. Like he's not.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
He ain't a spry chicken himself, so
yeah.
like I'm sure there's enough of a difference to justify the father-son dynamic. I mean, he was born 65. Someone do some quick math. Yeah, he's 56.
Yeah.
Jeez. He's 56. That's even older than I thought.
So I mean, even that is kind of like, all right, yeah, you know, if they were going by their real ages, like Sam Jackson would have had to have had him when he was pretty young.
Jackson was born 48, so what, 17?
Yeah.
you could fudge it a little bit though. You can say he's a little bit older than they're saying, or like Chris Rock's a bit younger. And I mean they both. Sure. I mean Chris Rock definitely looks a bit younger than he is. I mean not as much as Samuel L. Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson looks ridiculously good for his age. It's weird. But maybe it's like because he shaves his head, so there's no grey hairs. Maybe that's like part of it.
That's true. Yeah. But I mean, like, I don't know, like, not that it like is a huge difference or whatever, but I don't know. I feel like would it have changed anything if you also just like made them like partners or something? Like, you know, did it have to be father and son?
I guess it's just because it's important that they're father and son, because that's why he cares so much what happens to Chris Rock in the flashbacks, because it's his son, right? That, you know, I guess that's the only reason. Because because in the flashback, Samuel L. Jackson, when they don't give him backup, when he calls for backup and he ends up getting shot, Chris Rock that is.
Oh yeah.
Samuel L. Jackson just shows up and threatens. He's like, I'm going to find out who the nearest person was and didn't come, and I'm just going to shoot that mother effer. You know what? For his screen time in this, Samuel L. Jackson does have a lot of mother effers in this.
That flashback like was kind of crazy because it did seem like out of nowhere, and I mean, I was pretty bored in this movie, so if this was something they mentioned before, that's on me, I guess, for missing it. But they kind of just flash back and they're showing all this stuff, and it's like some stuff is like, you know, whatever, him having a rat on his desk, but then they like jump to him getting shot. And it's like, oh, okay, that's a much worse thing than like, yeah, just having some people like talk about you behind their back or something.
Yeah, I mean, on the flashbacks, like Samuel L. Jackson's given a mustache to look younger, and it's a pretty fake looking mustache. And
it was the Superman Justice League mustache.
And then the current captain, Garza, she's given like a fringe to make her look younger in the flashback. It's maybe like 12 years ago. Which actually, that was the thing that was really weirding me out, is that the flashbacks in this to when all this happened, where he turned in the dirty cop and the new partner was a kid, as we find out later on, like that is actually after the first Saw movie.
Oh really?
Yeah, because it's only like they said it's like 12, 15 years ago. The first Saw movie was 17 years ago.
This is another one of those movies where I can't be arsed to figure out the timeline.
It's just funny to me that we're at the point in this franchise now where it's been going on so long that when they do like a character was a kid 50 years ago, that's actually after the original movie. So the setup hadn't happened yet. If you're thinking about it in terms of the world and the continuity and all the stuff that's going on at the same time, like Saw 2 or 3 were playing out whilst this was happening somewhere else in the city or whatever. I assume it's all around the same city because they all seem to know who Jigsaw is. Like Jigsaw didn't strike me as someone who was trotting across the country, doing a tour.
I mean, yeah, if this was real life, I mean, Jigsaw, there would be so many Netflix documentaries, so many true crime podcasts, like that like you would never stop hearing about Jigsaw if this was like the real world.
Yes, who was John Kramer? Is that it? Did I get it? Yeah, Kramer.
Jerry.
See, now I'm just thinking of Kramer from Seinfeld.
Yeah.
I tell you what, you do a new Saw movie where he just gets recast miraculously as Jigsaw and acts like Kramer, and then I'll watch it. It'll be the best Saw movie, easily.
You know,
question.
like I don't know, Newman's his like little puppet or whatever that gives the messages.
Newman's the Amanda character, yes.
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah, it's Jerry and George who wake up in the bathroom.
Yeah. Actually, like that would be pretty dumb, but like I don't know, I could see that being like a funny SNL skit or something. Like they're in the yeah, like the Saw bathroom, but like, you know, Jerry's just doing his observational humor.
Yeah, like critiquing the setup and the clues and like, who puts a saw, you know, in a bathroom or something? I don't know.
Well, a saw's never as sharp as you want it to be, you know? That's a shame. Like George saws his leg off, but like there's no keys. Like, that's a shame.
Oh dear. So I mean, I'm going to turn through.
Did you see you know, they making a big thing about putting Seinfeld on Netflix, but like they messed up the aspect ratio.
I did, yes. I mean, the aspect ratio has been widescreen for a while now, ever since they did the HD. Because when I watched some of it on Prime a while ago, it was in widescreen as well. The only thing I'll say, since we're talking the aspect ratio, is that at least with that, because they did the same thing at Friends, is that because they actually did have more footage in the sides because they shot it wider and just, you know, it was, you know, masked off for the 4:3, at least it's not all just cropped. Now, admittedly, normally if this was a movie or a more dramatic TV show, I would complain. I would say, no, the composition's important, you know, it's cinematography, it's all about that. To be honest, when it comes to things like Friends and Seinfeld, it's not, like, there's sitcoms that... There's not like a cinematographer and a director who is like talking about the meaning of each shot. You know, they're just basic multi-camera coverage. So it's not like it's not as big of a deal to me as like other shows that get altered or movies that get altered and pan and scan and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say to kind of counter that is there are times where I do think like you miss like some jokes. Like, because, you know, there might be something off to the side that you're missing, or, you know, that might be talking about something that they're looking at. And, you know, I've seen, like, people kind of put, like, online, like, some examples of, the, like, oh, hey, like, here's, like, the, you know, the pothole episode, and you can't even see the pothole when they're talking about it, which, I mean, it's, like, does it make a huge difference? Like, no, not really, but, yeah, I think, you know, it is better with it. And I feel like I always see that whenever they put like a new comedy thing. Like there was a big thing about that with The Simpsons when it went to Disney Plus. And
yeah, well,
they were like cropping jokes.
Yeah, I mean, with The Simpsons, it was literally just cropping it because that's all they could do.
Yeah,
because it was only, you know, it was only just drawn to that exact shape, so all they could do. So people complained enough that they actually put up an option to watch the old version. No, don't get me wrong. If they offered like Seinfeld in the quality, because that's the problem, you've got a choice of either crappy standard definition from the old days in the right shape, or you can watch it remastered in HD in the new. And sadly, I think at this point you're probably picking the HD one just because it's not that big of a deal in this case. But then you get to stuff like the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where their slapdash HD job was so awful and like changed the color correction. They were cropping things, and what was so weird is that there's actually a widescreen version of season 4 onwards, but for some reason they were cropping the 4:3 version rather than using the widescreen version that already existed for some shots. But it was like, I don't know, it was all over the place. So it's a mess.
And it's so funny too. I mean, we're getting really off topic, but like, I mean, who cares? But like, it is like so funny to me, like when these streaming services make such a big deal about getting like these old shows. It's like, what does that say about entertainment? Where
I know
people don't really care as much about new stuff as it's like, oh, this is the platform where we can watch The Office. Oh, here's where we can watch Friends and Seinfeld. Like these are like such old shows, but it's like, you know, those are like bigger announcements than when they have like some like brand new show or movie or something.
Yeah, it's so weird. I don't get why they make a big deal over getting this with Friends, because those tend to be the two ones that get the news. The Office as well as the other one, which is just now on Peacock forever because it's their own thing.
Yeah.
It's very odd to me, especially since, like, if you're already a super fan of that show, why wouldn't you just already have it? Like, why if you care enough about a show that it will make you buy a service to watch the 10 seasons or whatever it is, then you know what, it goes, the complete box set, either physical or digital, goes on sale for like $30 for the whole show at various points. That would actually be cheaper than paying for months of a service just to watch your old show.
I always think about that whenever I see, like, and I know not everyone is a collector of, like we are and stuff, but like sometimes I'll see someone be like, oh my God, like this movie just showed up on Netflix. It's like my favorite movie of all time. It's like, your favorite movie of all time? Like, you don't own it? Like, like I understand maybe like, yeah, you don't collect every little thing, like, obsessively like we do or something, but if it's like something that's that important, like you don't already have a copy or something.
Yeah, it's just weird. I brought this up before with Connor, but I always like, see when someone's like, oh man, I'm dying to watch this thing, but it's on no streaming services, it sucks. And I'm like, if you're dying if you actually care that much, if you really, really want to watch it, it'll be rentable. You can pay $3 or $4 and rent it if you care that much about seeing it. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine. But don't tell me that you're dying to watch it and it sucks that it's not on a streaming service you already have.
Yeah. You're like, oh my God, like I'm the biggest Dick Grayson fan. I love Titans. Like, the Titans are my world. I would give anything to watch Titans. I just wish there was a way to watch it. It's like, yeah, you can't watch it. You just have to pay money. Like, don't say you're the biggest Titans fan if you ain't watching Titans on HBO Max.
That's a very weird example to bring up, but yes, like, and I get it. Obviously, there's a lot of things where you're like, oh, I'd like to watch that, but I can wait until it's on a service. Right? That's fine. Like, I'm not saying you have to pay for every single movie you want to watch. I'm just saying that if you really care, if you're actively going, I wish I could watch that and I can. There is a way of doing it. Like, maybe this is because we grew up in a time where we used to blind buy DVDs and Blu-rays, and I remember in high school I started buying DVDs. Like, maybe it's just because there was a time when that's how you got to things, as you sought them out and bought them. Maybe we just have a different mindset from the millennials, the kids today, to me. Or it's not even millennials, we're millennials. The Generation Z, that lot.
I also feel like I weirdly enjoyed stuff more when I actually bought it, like just blindly bought it and hoped that it was good.
Oh yeah, for
versus
sure.
like, watching something on streaming that I'm like, maybe this looks good.
Streaming services, obviously some things are like something specific you're looking forward to is great and all that, but for the most part, streaming services just make everything feel like a list of content that I'm never going to get through. Yeah. Whereas when I buy something, because I paid for it, I make an effort to get to it at some point and give it a chance. And even if it sucks, I gave it more of a chance. See, if I watch something that's just on Netflix or just on Shudder, if if I'm not into it within 5 minutes, I'm already starting to drift. Whereas if I bought it, I'm going to give it a chance for as long as possible. To try and really make it worth my investment. And well, obviously it doesn't always work out. At least it got a really fair chance because I felt more inclined to do so.
I know what you mean.
So. Yeah, I say it's a weird tangent to go on, but yeah, I like collecting. I've been buying movies on iTunes and I've been having a whale of a time.
Yeah, I was excited because I always, every October I always buy like a little stack of new horror DVDs I mostly tried Blu-rays, but I actually got quite a number of like DVDs this month because there was like stuff I just couldn't find on Blu-ray. But I always like having a nice little collection to go through then.
Going more obscure. Yeah, I mean, I bought stuff that I'm going to watch on stream this month. I've got Death Streams to look forward to. I got Chill Factor. I got something. I just watched something called Pledge Night, which was an interesting one. And I've got a list. Arrow are selling all their stuff for cheap right now on iTunes, so I'll just be grabbing random Arrow things throughout the month. So delightful. Should we talk about Spiral?
If we must.
I mean, I can kind of churn through the middle of it quite quickly. It's character a cop character that is, will get kidnapped, put in a torture trap. A message will be sent to Chris Rock via USB stick, and it'll be a recording with like a hint or a tease. It'll very briefly set up some various things, like the first cop who died. Like, apparently Chris Rock was good friends with him, like, which kind of felt like it came out of nowhere when he started, when he was making a big speech about how he wants to be the lead detective on the case, and he says, he was my brother, he played with my kids. I'm like, everything else you've told us is that every cop in this precinct hated you, and you didn't feel safe around them. But this one, who we already know is corrupt because of what the Jigsaw-esque character said about him, was like one you cared about. You were close to this guy. I don't know. I just felt a little bit like it was conflicting with everything else they were saying. But fine.
It's like it wasn't the most well thought out movie.
No. But
this middle chunk though is like, it was so boring to me.
Oh yeah, it's kind of repetitive as well, because it's like, okay, Samuel Jackson shows up and then he goes missing. We had a couple of flashbacks which I already kind of talked about. The second cop that goes is like the asshole who really hates Chris Rock. He gets lured into a trap where his fingers are put in a thing, and he gets like again, it's the same sort of generic looking head trap on his head, but his fingers are pulled off by a big device, and they're also sent to Chris Rock. And then it teases a couple other things. But the weird part of the movie, though, the thing where it goes, so Max Minghell's character, Schneck, the rookie detective, who's kind of bonding with him a little bit and seems to be kind of a good guy. And which immediately made me feel kind of fishy. I was like, you know what? You're already suspect number one, quite frankly. But then halfway through the movie, like with no build or setup at all, it just cuts to another scene in the police station, and there's a package delivered, right? And they're all like, oh shit, it's another one of these Jigsaw things. Chris Rock opens it, and it's like a little dollar puppet that's covered in human skin, and it's like, oh, this is freaky, and oh, this is messed up. But he turns it over, and the skin has a tattoo that says Charlie, which I'm glad the movie flashed back and showed me that the cop Schneck, like the rookie, that he had Charlie tattooed his arm, because I would never have known who that was indicating otherwise. But it's like, wait, is he supposed to have just died off screen, like with no indication he was in danger before this point, and with no characteristics that would lead you to think why the killer would want to go after him? So immediately I was like, okay, I don't believe he's dead. I didn't see any of it happen. I don't believe it. He's the killer. Let's get to it.
It's very obvious. It's like they wouldn't go to the trouble of like hiring an actor to say those lines beforehand if he's just gonna be like cut out from the movie completely at that point.
It was so abrupt as well, and there wasn't even like a scene of like him like looking over his shoulder like, oh, something's about to happen to him. I mean, there was nothing. Yeah. There was nothing to tease that it was just all of a sudden, oh, I guess he's dead.
Also, it's like, what's the motive here? Because like every other cop has been like a very explicit like oh, here's why you're being killed, because you're dirty for this reason. It's like, what was his reason? It's like guy that just started.
Yeah, you noble guy, you noble honest cop. So
and also, I don't think we mentioned the usually in the Saw movies they have like that little I think his name is Billy or something, that little Jigsaw puppet, but now they have like a little pig puppet.
Yeah, because it even says like so there's a line at one point about someone pulling all the strings, and again, it's very obvious what it's getting at. It's talking about how his dad was police captain and he's actually just as corrupt as everyone who's working under him. Like, it was very obvious what it's getting at. The current police captain, Garza, she gets killed in the basement of the police station. So whoever is the killer clearly has access to these things and can get into the system. But she's killed by having hot wax poured on her face until she suffocates. She's told she can get out of it by severing her spinal cord by like rubbing her back of her neck against a blade. But I mean, like all the traps in this movie, there's no chance this is going to work.
Yeah, and like I wasn't sure, like, all right, when she does that like trigger a button or something that stops the hot wax pouring? Or like I wasn't sure what the mechanics
Yeah,
of it
'cause
looked.
it's
Or
not
is he
like-
watching?
Because it's not like because sometimes the saw traps are like, well, if you cut off your hand, then you can move away from the danger, right?
Yeah.
She ain't getting up and walking away if she severs a spinal
Right.
column. So I don't know what the thinking was here.
And it didn't seem like they gave her any time. It was like that wax like immediately started like dripping.
Oh yeah. And they sort of teased it. Maybe because Samuel Jackson went missing. Maybe he's the killer, right? Which knowing what age Samuel L. Jackson is, it's kind of funny to think of this 70-plus-year-old man going around doing all this stuff. But I
Mr. Glass.
will say they did. I will say they did tease. Or not tease, but they did. So there's a moment where Chris Rock is then kidnapped. And he wakes up and he's handcuffed to a pipe. There's a saw sitting next to him, so it teases the first movie a little bit. But there's a guy in with a sack over his head, and I thought that was Samuel L. Jackson because I never really believed that he was the killer. But when he pulled the sack off, eventually it turned out to be the cop that he turned in years ago, who we do meet briefly in the middle of the film. Randomly when they go to talk to him, and I was like, you know what? The lighting here was obscuring because you could see his hands, but you could never tell. The fact that this was a middle-aged white guy was never like a giveaway of who it was, because I genuinely just thought it might be his dad. But they did. So they did this weird tease, right? And we have glossed over a lot of this movie because so much of it's just repetitive cop, like, oh, I can't trust anyone. Oh, I need to find the killer. Oh, he's in my head. I must stare out the window as the blinds like form a pattern of light on my face as I look all meaningful or some shit. So he wakes up and he sees the blade, and you get like a sort of slow like it's a very slow teasing version of the main theme, like dan 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 dan, right? And he picks up the saw blade, and he looks at the handcuffs. He tries to saw the handcuffs for like 5 seconds, and then he looks at them, and he looks at his wrist, and he starts to line up the saw blade on his wrist. Within the space of like a minute of waking up, he's almost at the point where he's willing to cut off his hand, and then luckily he notices a bobby pin sitting like right in front of him that he can reach with the blade, and he's able to pick the lock. And I'm like, dude, you were jumping to cutting off your hand. Like I started laughing because like he like this was so close to him not noticing this that he could have just cut off his hand and then went, oh shit, there was a bobby pin. Oh well, lol. There goes my hand.
Yeah, like I don't know. It is kind of funny, but like, yeah, I do wonder if they meant for that to be humorous, at least in that way. Probably not. But yeah, it's such a weird thing. It is very funny though. Yeah, just like him immediately being like, "Oh, better saw my arm off."
Yeah, well, I think the point of the bobby pin is that, like, it's meant to make you go, "Oh, the killer doesn't want him to actually have to do it. It's giving him an easy out because it's playing games with them, and it wants, there's more to this than that." The problem is the speed. He goes to the place where he's willing to cut off his hand so quickly that when he looks over and sees the bobby pin, it becomes more of a punchline of like, ha ha ha, you almost did that, like immediately, with no consideration or trying anything else or whatever. So it keeps it. Anyway, I mean, this is probably the most fun trap in the movie just because it's a bit of a visual. So this corrupt cop, he's hanging up, and this place is like a factory that crushes old glass bottles.
And so, wait, if I have this correct, so when they flash back to, why this guy was corrupt or whatever, so basically, when there was like a witness did the witness see like another cop or something? Do something illegal?
Well, this is actually kind of weird. They never reveal who the cop is. I thought it was maybe going to reveal that it was Samuel L. Jackson, and I don't know if it ever actually said that or confirmed that, but maybe it was just someone else. But regardless, there's a witness, right? So there's a witness who's telling the corrupt cop in the flashback that he's going to testify that this other cop threw someone off a roof. And immediately the corrupt cop pulls out his gun and just shoots him, and then claims that he pulled a gun. And
while like Chris Rock is in the elevator.
and Chris Rock, who's just been taking too long to get there, he's been too busy like eating pizza or something, he shows up and says, "What happened?" He's like, "He pulled a gun on me." And Chris Rock wisely responds with, "The witness pulled a gun on you."
Yeah. Like, I don't know, this is so, like, obviously not like, you know, yes, there's like corruption and stuff that exists, but would anyone be this dumb to like just blatantly like shoot like this witness, like, especially if you know that like you have like the one good guy in the force that's like about to meet up with you? Like, I don't know, it just seems like so like stupid, and like it feels like you could have come up with like a smarter or more believable way for someone to be like corrupt or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. The whole scene just comes off comically because, again, it's so quick the way he just pulls out his gun and immediately shoots someone he says he's going to testify.
Yeah. And also, like, that cop just, I think, looks just kind of goofy. Like, he doesn't really look like the normal kind of like hardened like badass cops that you would think. He is just kind of like this like dopey guy. It's like, "Hey, you had a gun."
But then, of course, it turns out that this guy's son, the guy who was shot, the witness's son, is in fact our rookie detective, who it even has a line. So when after this trap, which is all the glass bottles in the factory are going through the conveyor belt, they get crushed, and for some reason this machine fires all the broken glass just into the I guess there's meant to be a big like, you know, container or something to catch it, if this is even like remotely a real thing, but it basically,
I don't know if this is how they do it, but it seems inefficient.
But the broken glass fires into the corrupt cop. The corrupt cop's able to spin around while he's chained up, and Chris Rock's trying to like find the key to unlock the padlock on him to get him down, which he does just a little bit too late, and his back is just shredded with broken glass. I mean, it's definitely the most fun kill because it's just like you actually get to see a lot of it, and it's a bit drawn out, so it's a bit more, I don't know, fun, if that's even a word you want to use for a kill like this. But
and I don't remember if the original Jigsaw did this, but like there's all these like Riddler-esque like double entendres and stuff, like with the clues where it's always like, you know, it's not just like, okay, you need to do this to survive. It's also like, oh, I'm giving you a clue inside this thing to, you know, let you know what you have to do to save this person or whatever.
I guess the answer is kind of. Like, there was always stuff in the first movie which was like, you know, there was a clue to turn off the lights because there was a hidden, like, glow-in-the-dark message in the wall kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess, but I don't know. It always, I mean, not like I have the best memory of these movies, but it always just felt like, at least what I was remembering, that it seemed like a bit more direct. Like, you know, when he would say, like, oh, yeah, you know, like, you have to snap off your hand to escape the cuffs or whatever. But I don't know. I mean, maybe if you want to say the difference here being that's a different person, or that the fact that he's doing this to Chris Rock's character, not the actual person in the trap, maybe that makes a difference. But I don't know. It seemed a little weird to me.
But yes, after this, though, he gets out and walks into a room. And lo and behold, Rookie Cop is standing there, and like a whimper, it's just kind of revealed. Yeah, it's me. I'm the killer. And he even has a line where he points out the absurdity that he grew up from the age of 12. And there was a line earlier in the film where he says, "I've been looking forward to this since I was 12." But since he was 12, he trained to be a cop. And he says the line, "Do you know how hard it was to like get assigned to your precinct and be placed as your partner?" And I'm like, yeah, it sounds pretty implausible that you could actually arrange all of that when none of that's your decision when you're being, you know, placed and things. So
yeah. Also, like, it's like a super weird thing to basically be like torturing Chris Rock and like playing all these like mind games and stuff when like he was like the one dude that, like, you know, helped him out and, like, you know, fought for justice for his dad and stuff when he was a kid. Like, Chris Rock was a good guy in this scenario, but he's, you know, still messing with him and still hurting the people he loves.
Which
like,
is probably the biggest change from the other movies is that the main character, at least as far as we ever really find out, is sort of noble and heroic and doesn't deserve
that's true, yeah,
to be, you know, killed by Jigsaw or in this case, this copycat. But what gets me though is that that does offer the door for the statement, right? It offers the door to actually say something with the movie, because the end of the movie is that, okay, so Chris Rock immediately says, yeah, I'll do this with you, because he wants to recruit him. That's the whole thing. It's like, hey, we can, like, you can point out the bad cops and I'll do my thing, right? That's what he wants. And yeah. Chris Rock says, yeah, sure. He's in, and obviously he's maybe just stalling for time or whatever, but then Rookie Cop's like, okay, but you've got a test. You're going to have to prove your loyalty to this, that you believe in this. And sure enough, his dad is in this big trap where he's connected to all these tubes where it's draining his blood, and he's going to be dead in like 4 minutes or whatever it is. And he's called the cops, so the cops are on their way. And so he has to decide. He has to basically decide what he's going to do. He has to let his dad die as a sign that he's willing to let corrupt cops die. And it's like, hey, he was just as corrupt as everyone else, blah, blah, blah. And the dilemma of a character in this movie, like, fighting against corrupt cops, right, from within, and wanting to change the system, and you have this Jigsaw-esque character saying, I'm willing to go after the corrupt cops. If nothing else, this should scare the rest of the cops into staying clean and being honest and doing their job properly, right? It's kind of like an extreme killer version of Batman in a lot of ways. Like, the whole point is to scare everyone else into doing the right thing. And you have Chris Rock faced with this dilemma of like, well, this might actually make a change, this might actually lead to something, but I also, this isn't right because this is not the right way of doing this. This is illegal. This is murderous. This is all these things. But when he actually has to make a decision, it feels like it's less to do with the morality of what everything that's going on, and it's more to just do with, this is my dad and I love my dad. Don't kill my dad. Like that's what it feels like, rather than he's making any kind of like statement back saying, yes, we have to clean up the system, we have to clean up the corrupt cops, but we have to do it the right way or it's meaningless. Like there's none of that is in there. It's all just, I don't want to let my dad die kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's really like stupid because I never got the sense that Rookie Cop, like I never felt like his character actually believed that Chris Rock would go with it. Like, he's saying the lines, but it's like, come on, man. Like, you gotta know that this guy isn't gonna be like, well, you just killed my dad, but yeah, let's work together. Like, even if my dad was corrupt, like, that's not gonna be a great way to start a partnership. And it really doesn't ever feel like he actually believes Chris Rock is gonna be on his side.
No, and it's all time. So when the SWAT team came in, like Samuel L. Jackson's hand is rigged with a shotgun, which a string, because he's like a puppet here, right? So it's sort of like it's the puppet we've been seeing throughout the movie. He does the same kind of motion.
Like first, like Chris Rock, like this is such like an elaborate trap, but like not in a fun way. Like because first he's strung up, and then like he falls down, but then there's like another thing on the door that when they try to cut open the door, it strings him back up, and then like there's this weird puppet thing with his like arm, and of course like they're gonna see him like pull a gun up and stuff, and like the cops are gonna automatically shoot him, and it's so stupid because it's like, well, everyone can see that he's not in control of his actions. Like
he's clearly suspended in the air with like multiple cables and chains and whatever. And I mean, someone may argue maybe they're trying to make a statement here that like, he's pulling a gun but via force, and the SWAT team just instantly mow him down with bullets. Like maybe there's some kind of statement here because it's a black man, right? And he's got a gun, but I don't know. It's so murky because there's so many like deranged details on top of it. That, this isn't like the end of Night of the Living Dead where it feels like this really bitter statement of a moment where it's really quite sad. This just feels stupid because of all the factors that are going on around it. So it never really feels it. So Chris Rock screams as he watches his father effectively be hit with a firing squad, and turns around, and our killer, Rookie Cop, is just in the elevator and just waves bye-bye as the elevator goes down. It cuts to black, directed by, play your song. And I'm like, okay, they left this so open for another one. Like that, like he's still on the loose. He's not been caught. And
It
even
is like
even the fact that the hero character Chris Rock is still going to be out there and like want to find him, like they've set up a sequel here.
yeah, it is such an abrupt ending. It is kind of wild. And like also I don't know if like they're trying to if he was trying to set him up so it's like, all right, if you don't work with me, then everyone's gonna think that you're doing this because I called the cops and made them, told them you were firing the gun and now you're here. But like also I don't know how the layout of this room works, but like some of those cops had to have seen Jigsaw going down that elevator. Like I don't think he was that far away.
Yeah, I mean, even if they don't see him, like there's cops outside as well. Like the
Yeah.
movie just the movie plays this like, oh well, he definitely got away, and I'm like, I don't know, the building's surrounded. Like it feels a bit far fetched. I mean, especially since like it'd be fine if he was still supposed to be alive because he could just pretend to be there as a cop, right? But
Right, yeah.
he was supposed to be dead. Like he was one of the victims technically. So
Yeah.
there's going to be questions.
Yeah, and like Chris Rock can very easily like pinpoint him out and say like, all right, now I know the guy that we're looking for, and it's
Yeah, he knows his name. He knows, his motive. He knows all these things. Like so, but it leaves so much open for a sequel where they're maybe playing cat and mouse, trying to like catch each other, and maybe that is the plan. Maybe everything I said earlier about waiting for someone else to want to do it. Maybe Chris Rock's got like another one in mind. Maybe Chris Rock wants to do a trilogy. I don't know.
Oh god.
I mean, will they let him do another one if he cares? Did he get it out of his system? Did this? I mean, I guess it technically bombed, but it's hard to really judge anything given that it came out in May 2021
Sure.
or whatever. Oh, was it last year? No, it was this year. Everything
I think it was supposed to come out last
was-
year,
yeah, but
maybe,
every-
then got delayed.
everything just get pushed completely till this year. That's right. And they just sort of gave in and started releasing things, even though it was not the perfect circumstances. Then again, there's never a good circumstance for Spiral, the Book of Saw.
I gotta say too, like the again, like not a huge fan of like the other Saw movies, but I do want to say that there is something that is compelling about Tobin Bell's performance and his character. I mean, again, like, do I like it? Like, no, not really, but I find it much more interesting and a memorable performance than the killer in this movie, who is just so bland and forgettable. I mean, I couldn't even tell you his name, versus like, I mean, we were kind of making fun of Kramer earlier, but I mean, his look and his name and stuff is like a lot more memorable. And Tobin Bell, like, I think does generally do a good performance in those movies. Where this guy is just so generic and nothing to him.
Yeah. I mean, Tobin Bell, if nothing else, had a lot of presence. And he kind of stuck out, and there's a reason why they kind of somehow worked him into at least 6 of the movies, despite the fact that he died in the third one. So, like they really clung to him because he kind of was. And obviously, I'm not saying that he's as important as Robert Englund to Freddy is, but
Sure.
in the same way that they tried to make sure they had him for as long as they could before they had to just. So, and because even Jigsaw, the most recent one, they did like that weird double, like, I mean, it was a bit of a twist that this was happening, so spoilers for the last Saw movie if you care, but they had like a sort of reveal at the end that half of the movie was taking place in the past, so that's how we got a lot of Jigsaw voice, that's how we saw some Jigsaw. So this was the first one. I mean, maybe I don't remember a lot of them in 7. Maybe 7 was quite light on Jigsaw himself or Tobin Bell, but this really felt like it was, other than a photo of him, there was nothing from Tobin Bell in this.
Oh yeah.
So it's definitely the least Tobin Bell of any Saw movie. So, I mean, take that as you will.
This one was not Saved by the Bell.
I think it's notable though that unlike the last movie, they left their new killer alive because I think, and the chance that this was going to be a hit, they wanted to make sure they had options for doing at least another one. If not another 5, why not? I'll be upset if it overtakes some other franchises. I mean, it's already overtaken Nightmare.
Phantasm.
Well, it's definitely overtaken Phantasm. That's only at 5, but like,
Yeah, Nightmare.
it's only a few away from beating Friday the 13th and Halloween. Like, it's not that many.
I'm trying to think. Is it about on par of Texas Chainsaw Massacre? How many does that have?
The last one, Leatherface, was 7 or 8.
Is that 9?
No, on. You got 1, 2,
The 4
3,
original.
Next Generation, remake, prequel to remake, Chainsaw 3D, Leatherface. There's been 8. So the next one that's
Okay.
coming out will be number 9.
Okay.
Whenever
Wow.
that hits. Which I'm sure we're anticipating with
Oh boy.
admiration. Yeah, this movie, it sucked. I mean, that was obvious. We said that right at the start, but
Yeah.
but there's a variety of reasons why it sucks and why it's kind of a baffling, weird oddity. It's just a bad movie regardless of any stance. But I think especially the fact that we can look at this and say, even fans of the Saw franchise might be a little bit annoyed at this because it's so much of a pivot from Saw. And you're missing Tobin Bell. You're missing a lot of the things that they probably liked about Saw. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would be genuinely interested if Saw fans do like this movie. If anyone wants to comment, if they're a Saw fan, how they felt about this. But yeah, I can't imagine, like, at the very least, like, I can't imagine that they would like it more than any of the originals.
yeah, I'd be surprised. So, all right then. There you go. That's basically the thing. Tim, would you like to rate it out of 10?
Yeah, it's tough because, like, I can't really think of, like, where I would give, like, honestly, like, any points to. Like, I don't like the story. It's more of a boring police procedural drama kind of thing than it is horror movie.
It's getting into the Hellraiser sequel territory a little bit.
Yeah. At least those, like, I usually, maybe there's some cheesiness I can laugh at or something, or maybe like one scene of CGI chains that's kind of fun. But yeah, there's like I mean, I can't even really say that, like, there isn't even like any cool traps or fun gore that, like, it's like, well, yeah, the story was dumb, but oh man, that one scene with that trap was really cool. Like, there's nothing like that. The characters are bland and generic and boring and don't stand out, and yeah, the movie doesn't. I don't think it looks good. Like, music isn't really memorable. Like, I don't know. I really can't think of anything that I would, like, even just want to give it like a few points for. But I mean, I'll just give it a 2, I guess. Because on the one hand, like, it's easy enough to follow, and whatever. It's not like they forgot to turn the cameras on or whatever. So I'll give them just like the bare minimum points for making it a movie that you can watch and follow along and not be confused, I guess. But I mean, there really isn't anything about this movie that was enjoyable to me, or even though I don't like the original Saw movies, like, I could see myself maybe revisiting some of them at some point if I'm ever, like, really bored or they're on TV or someone wants to watch them, or I just want to be reminded of why I don't like them. Like, this I can never ever see wanting to watch again for any reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough. I don't know. Like, part of me feels like I don't want to go right down to a 2. Just because, like, at least as a professional film, it's it's not got bad sound recording or anything like that.
Sure.
Like, I feel like
that's why I didn't give it a 1, but
I feel like there is worse, and I've definitely. So I'm going to give it a 3. And there's a certain point where arguing between 2 and 3 is meaningless anyway. But
sure.
I don't want to make it sound like I like it more than Tim. I just because I don't. It's just it's a 3 out of 10. Sadly, not that I was expecting gold from this, but they could even have scraped a 5. Scraped into pleasant category.
Well, I mean, I could have easily given it points if, again, if there was, like, maybe something like some really memorable traps, or like a really cool gore scene that was, like, really bloody and gnarly, and I was like, oh, but yeah, there's nothing like that there that I could even give it, like, mild points for.
Yeah. Oh well. Oh well, there you go. That's Spiral from the Book of Saw. If you've been anticipating us talking about this one, then well, screw you, basically. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back next time.
I got a lot of mileage out of it. We talked for almost the length of the movie.
Oh yeah, but like at least 15 minutes of that was tangents.
True. I talked about Seinfeld a lot, so what are you gonna do?
Kramer, it's relevant. So
Yeah.
I want to make Tim pose for the thumbnail, so I don't know what he's going to do for this, but here we go. 3, 2, 1, pause. You look like you're trying to sell me a used car, Tim.
Maybe.
So, yep, that's that is Spiral from the Book of Saw done. We'll have something else random probably next, and then we'll maybe get back to the new Candyman afterwards.
Random.
So look forward to that. So by all means, let us know what you thought of the movie if you've seen it in the comments below. Like and subscribe, ding the bell for notifications. All those things help us out a lot. For free, but you can also support us. You can also support us financially over at Patreon. Yes, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month. And of course, I will thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Board Now, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, David Brown, and Stanley.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim, for backing
up. Is
that
Stanley like 2 words, like Excelsior Stanley, or just 1 word?
Tim, this would be hilarious if Matt didn't crack that same joke every single week on Comics from the Multiverse. 1 word, Stanley.
Okay.
Not Stanley.
I'm curious.
Stanley is not sponsoring us from beyond the grave, no.
You should.
I don't believe we're in his will anyway. I mean, would have been nice, but you know. So yes, go do that. And you can also just find us on the Twitters at Screams Midnight for not only Screams After Midnight, but all Male Fuzz movies, podcasts, updates and stuff, and you can talk to us on there and whatnot. So thank you very much once again for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, and if you want to play a game, we'll see you next time.
Keep those skeletons safe.